Almost.
I'm sorry. God damn it. Fuck. God
Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today with episode 127 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast.
It is me, the LoneVaultWanderer.
And it's me, Karak with ACG, and I almost took over the podcast.
Almost.
That was very good timing.
Yeah, that delay, you were about a couple of seconds early, because I clicked record, so if it actually started instantly, then you would have been in the clear. But you were already firing away, so they call it like the tail end of Karak trying to hijack the beginning of this podcast. So we're going to be having a lot of Patreon guests on in the coming weeks, so if you guys want to be one of them, do consider supporting the Patreon. It keeps the show, the channel, everything alive during this wonderful demonetization phase we're going through. Who knows if it's just a phase. Anything else going on? Mobile links in the description. I've been skipping a lot of that intro stuff lately, so I got to get back on that. We're working on t-shirts. That's fun. But yeah, that'll wrap up our intro there. Let's dive into the first topic. It's some shit, man. It's not fun. We're talking about Shadow of Microtransactions. We're not even going to call it by its real name.
Oh, that's clever.
Hey, we got to thank GB, I think, because we had Maddie on the international podcast today, and I think it was GB who was like, Shadow of Monetizations. I was like, oh, no, it's never going to be the same.
Yeah.
We'll never call it its normal name again.
Yeah, so no one call it Shadow of War for this podcast. We got to make sure we always refer to it as Shadow of Monetization, Shadow of Microtransactions. What has happened is pretty much we already know the story with the loot crates and everything going on from way before the game launched. Now it's out. The developer promised that they had been testing the game with the microtransactions off. There was no issues. They thought it was perfectly fine, balanced, and that they hope when people play the game that word of mouth just spreads that, and that they're there for people who don't have time or something along those lines. Now it's out. Now we find out there's a true ending in the Shadow Wars Act, which is the fourth act in the game. And the only way you can get to that true ending is a very, very, very tedious grind, or you can buy your way. The way you unlock it is with a special ranked orc, a highest level of rarity. And apparently, from what I've just read based off reviewers, this is not my own opinion, the ending, the true ending, it's not a real good payoff. So,
okay, I was going to say, neither was Shadow of Mordor's ending. Holy shit.
Yep.
That was bad too. Okay, just go on.
Yeah, that is it. And you started off exactly what I was thinking is I personally said Shadow of Mordor did not have a good story. It was a fun game to some extent, but it did not have a good story. I didn't expect a good story from Shadow of War. Or I'm sorry, I fucked it up. Shadow of Microtransactions. Now, you're trying to tell me that I'm going to want a true ending for this game when the story is definitely going to be mediocre. It turns out it is. You know, across the boards, whether the reviews were 9s, 10s, 7s, whatever, it was always the consistent thing was the story not being that good. So why would I want a true ending for a story that's not all that good, you know, especially when it's a tedious grind? Karak, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I want to say I'm surprised at some of the scores because after reading, most are a combination of either a journalistic website or the video, but usually I was reading some of these reviews. I was sort of surprised that story was dinged so heavily and people were still saying masterpiece and and I was like, does that indicate that story now just doesn't matter considering fun factor and stuff like that, which is fine for some people, but I was really surprised at the scores.
And they're very high. I mean,
they're very high.
85, yeah.
Yeah, and I was also very surprised that only 2 reviews mentioned the microtransactions at the end being an issue. And I told this to Maddie in the prior podcast. I was like, well, only 8 to 10% of people beat the game. Some reviewers may not have got there as well. So sorry about my dogs.
No,
but so I don't know. I'm just a little bit confused by the entire thing, to be honest. I'm confused by the scores, and I'm confused by their idea of putting it in at the end.
Yeah, it's just a silly decision, I feel. I can understand, like I said earlier, there are people out there who don't have a lot of time, but they have money that they work hard for, and they want to spend it and maybe get to that true ending if they're just really knee-deep in Shadow of Monetization. But on the other hand, we have a game here that is barring off content in exchange for a microtransaction system. It's directly intruding on a gameplay mechanic, or rather a gameplay loop, I should say, just because they're trying to entice the player to buy into it.
Right.
And as I tried to mention before with the ending of Shadow of Mordor, having played that, like, I was like, this is a fun game, and then I got to that ending, and I'll say spoiler alert, but all it was a quick time event with Sauron. It was so disappointing, and if if I have any expectations, those are the expectations that I have with whatever true ending that the new game has, right? And if it's just going to be something similar, then like where's the incentive for me? And then I also saw another good comment. Like I think Dan Stapleton, is that his name, from IGN?
Yeah.
He's been defending and saying, no, it's actually like the microtransactions aren't that bad. But he also said, and this is the point that I picked up on, why would you spend it? Like the whole point of Shadow of Mordor was killing orcs and building your army. But these microtransactions are a way to bypass that. And his argument was, that's actually a bad way to play the game. Like, who would do that? But of course, there are people that would do that. So it's weird decisions that actually, and this is what I said in my past video, that undermine the very aspect, like the core of what the games are meant to be about, which is the Nemesis system and building your awesome army.
Nemesis should just be $signs in all the S's. And I think that's one of the problems is that we talk about this in reviews. Like, does a bug impact the core playability of the game? Does it impact the very thing that the company's trying to sell? And in a way, this is the way the microtransactions are treated here. I get it, because we talked about this prior. I get it that some people need time. You know, they're busy.
Yeah.
I have one person that I know who I think he works at almost as much as me, which is crazy because it's not games.
Yeah.
You're talking like 6 or 7 days a week. He has a half a day off and he gets a little bit of time and he's like, listen, I want to be able to do this. And I get it. But what's weird is that those purchases won't really help him. It's like, it's just for the end. It's just fucked up. Like, any way you look at it, it doesn't make a lot of sense how they put him into the game. And I think Dan said useless addition was what Dan said.
Yeah.
Useless addition to the game.
And the question is what you mentioned, is that issue of someone that doesn't have much time to play games, is that issue best resolved by difficulty settings as opposed to microtransactions?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So like, games that have a story mode, for instance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, there's two games that come to mind when you say difficulty setting right away. There's Persona 5. They have a difficulty setting that literally is like for people who want to enjoy the story. And so
story mode.
Yeah. And every fight, if someone goes down, they come back instantly. It's literally, you can't die. You can't lose.
Is it also Witcher 3 as well?
Horizon Zero Dawn. Witcher 3 added difficulty. Horizon Zero Dawn, though, added story mode, which was story difficulty.
I know Nier, that's a game I always bring up with good difficulty settings because it gave you specific chips, which is the build out that you can use in the game, and you'd have like auto aim, auto attack, stuff like that. So if you're just there for the story, you can get special chips to allow you to or allow the game to become a much easier experience.
Oh, Witcher 3 does have just the story difficulty.
There you go.
Apparently.
I think it was added later, right?
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, being honest about microtransactions, look, number one, they're a way to make money. Like, the argument that it helps people that don't have much time to bypass certain grindy aspects of the game, I mean, that in and of itself is not the best argument, because that issue would be better resolved by difficulty settings, like just the story mode, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, for example, it means you don't have to kill as many orcs in Shadow of War or whatever to build up your army. So it's like microtransactions aren't like the only way to deal with that is the point that I'm making.
What I think we're seeing here is, for example, when we looked at Shadow of Mordor, I don't know if you guys can recall the first time you ever saw Shadow of Mordor. That's the type of title we look at and we would never imagine, no way microtransactions come to this. No way. Unless it's DLC expansions. I always thought the same thing with Bethesda Game Studios games. No way. No way they can monetize the fuck out of this game. What we're seeing happen more, and those are just two fresh examples. I'm sure you guys would come up with more. What we're seeing here is suits stepping in, not really understanding the gamer, but seeing a chance to really profit and interjecting systems that, like the microtransactions in Shadow of Monetization, we're seeing a system that undermines the core mechanic, the core reason people are interested in this title at all.
In the game. Yeah.
So that's what we're seeing here, is just a way to monetize a title, but yet the person who's monetizing it or coming up with the ideas to do so doesn't understand the game at all. They just see a platform to gut the system for. And it's shitty.
You know what is one of the things is that it's kind of like this internal struggle with publishers to figure out that have very popular single player games. Well, look, Overwatch manages to do this all well, but people accept the skins and loot boxes because it's a multiplayer game. How do we adopt the same thing in single player? And it's really hard because every time it's happened, people have complained about it.
I've always said it's just the expansions. Expansions is how you do it.
Yeah,
like Shivering Isles.
And Overwatch has free expansions, so yeah, you're right in that regard. Yeah.
I just like the idea of expansions because microtransactions to me mean like a thing for a specific thing. Yeah. That's what causes me issues. Yeah. It's like you can get a skin for this gun. That's when I go, But if somebody's like, hey, guess what? We're expanding. Then that means expansion will occur in all areas of the game. Yeah. So like a Shivering Isles to me is an expansion, has a different idea behind it. Not Pearl Harbor. What the fuck's it called? For Fallout 4. Far Harbor, which everybody thought the story in that was probably better than most of the story in Fallout 4 itself.
Yeah, probably. Exactly.
Those kind of things are okay for single player. It actually makes sense for single player because it engages the gamer back into the original core mechanics and moves them forward. But does a shirt move you forward? Does camo for your gun move you forward versus that?
It's what you got to look at, I guess, is let's take a single-player game. Let's look at all possible mechanics for it and how you can monetize it and make sense of it. It just doesn't work. A gameplay mechanic, you're not going to hold that off of someone. You can't monetize that. Customization, we just saw that with NBA, and that did not go well. You're trying to monetize customization entirely.
And you know the weird thing is that with 2K, they just announced that WWE 2K18 has no paid microtransactions.
Yeah, none.
So is there a turning point here?
I think there is, because look at Forza.
They turned back as well.
They were like, whoa, shit. Yeah. And that's the question, to get this back to positive, because I know a lot of people are probably going, they're talking about microtransactions for the 4th weekend in a row. To talk about the positive, we are seeing that social backlash is working in some, and people can get mad that they don't do it day one. Guys, it's a company. I said this before. They're making money from you, and you are trying to get your money's worth from them. That's how it works. So the backlash will cause other companies to look and go, we need to do this smarter or not at all. And I think that's where they learn. And I do. I feel that WWE, dude, that's a big
deal.
Yeah, that's a big player base too, you know.
And it's a big deal as well, because just imagine the licensing fees that 2K are paying out of the arse to WWE for that game.
Sure.
They're making even less money on that game, presumably, than an equivalent game that sells the same amount of copies. And they're still not having paid microtransactions.
While that is a big player base, you got to think of how the WWE. I'm just going off of hearsay. I don't have any stats, but I believe it's not as big as it once was, where you're further undercutting yourself, I believe. So maybe they just don't see worth in it. I don't know.
Oh, I mean, my assumption is because of how they announced it, they saw NBA's. I mean, there were reviews. People were just destroying it. I have a feeling that they understand that it'll be very difficult for somebody. Listen, if your piece of fucking awesome steak is covered with a bunch of shit, it doesn't really matter, right? Like, you're not going to want to eat it. So I think what happened is NBA had a solid game underneath, and it did. There were some solid things. It wasn't great, but there were some solid things about it. But nobody got there. They were like, fuck, I have to buy a beard and a hair color so that they match? Like, what the fuck kind of world is this? Yeah. And so I think with WWE, with all the customizations, because let's be honest, guys, that game, if you've ever made a character in that game, set aside 6 hours if you want to make a fun character, because it is
the entrance and everything.
Yeah. And I think they could have monetized it. I think they could have murdertized it, to where it's just everything's monetized. And instead they're like, none. Will it come later? I don't know, but I will say this: at $60 day one, those people who buy it won't have to worry about it, and I'll be very interested to see how that works out.
Yeah, and I've said, I mean, I made a video about this recently. Fan feedback is absolutely important when it comes to this. So if people aren't happy with microtransactions in the game, just speak up. Say your piece, because if enough people say the exact same thing, then decisions are going to be made, changes are going to be made. And I'm not saying be a dick online, or be an asshole, or harass devs, for fuck's sake.
But right? The cancer orc thing, that got switched.
I could pull out a number of examples. Paid mods with Skyrim got canned, right? So many things. And obviously there's Creation Club, but You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
there are countless examples, and Microsoft and Forza is another one, of publishers and developers changing their mind on certain things. Maybe they were trying to test the water, whatever you want to call it. They've changed their mind because fans have spoken up. And I think that's a powerful message to say to fans. If something upsets you, just tell them. Because they thrive on that fan feedback. Otherwise, they fail as companies.
Yeah. Do you think other companies are watching all these changes happening and considering doubling back on their own microtransactions? I mean, obviously, the first example with our show would come to mind would be Creation Club. We'd be like, do you think Bethesda's watching Forza? We're watching Shadow of War. All these companies with these different microtransaction policies and going, okay, maybe we should rethink things. We did see, and while I still think it should be free, survival mode did get cut back from 800 to, 500 again. So it's still a pretty silly price, but it's not the $15 originally that Bethesda was about to ask for at a minimum.
Everybody watches everybody, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, you'll hear it from devs. They'll talk whether they're doing an interview or just at a conference, and they'll usually say that they may not get to play Joe Blow's game, even if it's their best friend. They may not have time, but they're watching the news and they're looking at things. And I will say this: we talked about this, Matty. A game like Lawbreakers that didn't have any of this stuff failed, and I think that what happens is right now we're at a very high fail state for games, and so I think that they're like, do we? You know, I mean, even if we have something great, does that mean anything? Like, it does it. And does it? I mean, that's a real legitimate question. Does that mean anything? Will it even hit the right fan base? Maddie and I like Battleborn. Didn't mean that Battleborn did well.
Another game, scary. I was reading an article. What's it called? Spec Ops: The Line. The developer just came out and said, I'd rather eat broken glass and make another game because the game didn't sell well and it was an atrocious development. That was a phenomenal game. That was like, not the most mind-blowing game in the world, but the story and the questions, like all of that was fantastic. And that didn't sell well. And there's probably countless examples of great games that haven't sold well or sold very average.
Too many.
So many.
And I think that that's the thing is, originally it used to be, what's the game and what's it do? And now it's, what's the game, what's it do? What microtransactions does it have? Does it have an expansion? Is it not an expansion? Is it Creation Club? And so it's confusing. And I think what happens is gamers start to just go, okay, I'd rather just play the one game I do have. I had people tell me that in the NBA. They're like, I'm just playing NBA 2K16 or whatever. Like, it's the same fucking people. It's only 2 years difference. So I'm not going to even worry about this. And I'm like, ooh, hopefully companies are seeing that and going, if we want them to jump, we got to make it viable. Yeah. And we got to, and fan feedback, Overwatch is a good example. I mean, you have a legitimate fan base that is really, really passionate, both good and bad. But they're really, really passionate for it. And if you get that and you get it in a good way, you are set. You can really work with them and do some crazy cool stuff with fans.
Someone commented to me the other day, and it was just such a poignant point, that goodwill is really easy to lose, but it's hard as fuck to build up.
Yeah, for sure.
And like when developers and publishers are changing their minds on these things, hopefully there is an end game, and then 2 or 3 years later, like they manage to change around. But again, look at Bethesda. As soon as they do something like paid mods, well, they did paid mods, and then they canned it straight away, and then people were like, still a bit uneasy, but okay, Bethesda. And then they did Creation Club. It's just like decisions like that, you can lose people's faith really, really easily. And if they do want to build it up, it's not just about flicking the switch and saying, all right, we're going to stop doing this. People have been annoyed by it, and the only way to build it back up is going to take years. It's literally going to take years.
It's interesting because you can look at Overwatch as a community that's passionate both for better and worse. And funny enough, there was an interview I just brought up from Jeff Kaplan because I remembered him talking about how he said, communicating with fans on the game forum can be scary. So
scary as fuck.
I have a quote here who says, Kaplan speaks at length about the work the team puts in, their dedication, and how critical they are of their own game. There's one section that people are latching onto, though, as Kaplan outlines how difficult it can be to talk about the game, with comments being latched onto and taken as definitive. And if you allow me to speak openly for a moment, it's scary. Overall, the community is awesome to us, but there are some pretty mean people out there. All of our developers are free to post on these forums. Very few of us actually do because it's extremely intimidating and or time-consuming. It's very easy to post the wrong thing and make a promise, in quotes, to the community that no one intended to make. Once we say we're working on something, we're not allowed to take it back. It's set in stone.
And can you blame them? Like this, I believe he was saying those things with that thread in mind. Did you see that developer's thread on Twitter who said the reason why devs don't talk about games is because the community just fucking, not like at large, but there are certain portions of the community that harass us and just tell us to grow the fuck up and man up and get good and you know, stop fucking complaining about developing games and just do what we want. I mean, and to an extent, I mean, can you blame them? Like, when every little decision or thing that you say or fucking profile picture that you change on Facebook, like with Chris Avellone, is like, what? You're doing what now? Like, it's a legit thing.
Yeah, it's. I think the ambiguity of some moves like that, we'll talk about Chris Avellone later, but I think stuff like that is what gets gamers going, because we like to speculate, we like to use our imagination. Games are built off of imagination, so it's like, you know, that type of stuff they thrive off of, but it can be our worst enemy. That's why I said just pick your freakouts. You know, like, if you're going to freak out over something, direct it in at least the right way, because if you're freaking out over everything, we've talked about this on the podcast at least a couple of times, where, like, if you're everything that happens this company does, you're like, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck, then that company's gonna stop listening to you. Not the entire community overall, but there's gonna come to a point where they're gonna go, okay, no one's approving no matter what we do. We could cure a horrible disease, and people will still hate us. So let's just do our thing, close the blinds here, and eventually we'll get fans more positive reception.
If people think that's hyperbole, there's a stem cell researcher who lives nearby, and we've sat down and had dinner with him a couple times, and they talked about curing cancer, and they asked me what I did, and I told them, and they said, how's social media? And I told them, you know, I love it for the most part, but blah, blah, blah. And he said, do you want to hear something terrible? He said, we're trying to cure cancer, right? And I said, yeah. And he's like, a majority of the comments I get is, why are you trying to cure cancer? Why don't you try to cure this other disease? And they get mad at him. Absolutely. And I'm like, are you fucking shitting me? And he's all, no. He's like, people will be like, they'll be like, fucking, why are you trying to cure cancer when more people die of blah, blah, blah? Or why are you even wasting your time? And he's like, holy shit.
It's like when people are saying, I'm donating to this charity. And they're like, what the fuck? Why aren't you donating to that charity?
Right. Like, sorry, Maddie, we're demonetizing this video left and right, man. God dang it.
Way to shit on it. Just someone's just trying to be positive, you know?
Oh, I posted bravo to turn 10. For doing this, and the amount of negativity I got, I was just like, wow. Okay.
Yeah, probably like, fuck them. Like, you know, they don't deserve to be given kudos.
Blah, blah, blah. And somebody was like, apparently you must be paid off by them. I was like, no, I was trying to explain what I always do, which is fans have fed back. It's turned, obviously they've looked at it and been like, this was a bad idea. That's, you know.
I mean, because what happens is if, you know, people are so obsessed with, in some way, I'm not going to try to generalize it too much, but just like looking hard, looking tough. And so the second, like, the developer makes a good move, it's like, you're trying to still back him in a corner, like, yeah, pussy, that's what you're going to fucking do. It's like, you know, it's like, okay, how about we give him a pat on the back for fucking listening to us and seeing if, it's like a relationship. You don't want to just keep arguing. You want to fix things.
Right.
So
I think you're wrong. I think people don't want to fix stuff. I mean, I think you're right. As in,
I know what you're saying, but like,
I think a lot
at that point where you have to imagine, like, do you want to fix these problems, or do we just like to yell here?
Yeah,
because that's the thing. We always apologize on the show when we get negative about games. We're like, sorry, we're getting negative because we don't want to be like that. We want to start being. We want to sing the praises and all that stuff.
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
Yeah, it's a little phrase called outrage culture, and I don't like it. I really despise it.
I try to avoid it. I try my best. I definitely didn't do that well with Creation Club on avoiding it, but like it came to a point where it was getting fucking ridiculous, and I was like, no.
Your Bethesda channel, I think that makes sense, and I think you handled it better than 88% of the people out there.
It was the other 12%. You cheating on me?
Well, the other 12% were the ones that the moment they mention anything, they immediately say it's terrible and everything should be free and blah blah blah. And it's like we passed that point. So it should be more of a constructive conversation around where we're at. What we really need is regulations. We talked about this before, because we have none on anything. And what has to start happening is some regulations in some places so that people can sort of, like, it's the Wild West right now.
You know what? I was reading or listening, really interesting point about esports, right? And how the only way that esports is going to legitimize in terms of consistency with player salary and all those kinds and contracts and all that stuff is if publishers get together, kind of like they did with the ESRB in classifying games, and just kind of have these mutual agreements and self-regulate and say, we're going to do this. And a similar thing maybe with YouTubers. Actually, it was about YouTubers and Let's Plays. Like, if a bunch of publishers get together and say, we'll be okay with this kind of content and self-regulate in that regard, it actually means that, for one, it's a beneficial thing. Everyone's getting together. But two, it means government stays out of it. Because usually when government gets into it, that's when shit hits the fan. Yeah. That's the reason why we have the ESRB. It was set up so government doesn't have a say, because they usually take a more strict approach, and it's hard to change legislation. Yeah. So,
agreed.
All right, let's move on to Cuphead. So Cuphead released, has excellent reviews. Karak, you gave a glowing review for it. Game looks amazing. And this game has had some of the weirdest controversy surrounding it. Beforehand, it was like the whole thing with the game journalists and, should you be good at games if you want to review them? Game came out, we were trying to forget about that. And now the discussion is a quite simple but yet intriguing question of, is Cuphead too hard? When is too hard, I guess, is the right way.
And the follow-up question is whether every single game should be obliged to have an easy mode. Yeah, I think that's what I kind of saw. And Ken Levine did a really good tweet when he was like, games that are really hard to play, great. Games that are easy and cater to everyone, also great. Like, not every single game needs to be for everyone. I mean, you can have your Dark Souls and your Cupheads that are incredibly hard, that test hardcore gamers, and that's okay. And that's coming from me as a pretty average gamer. Like, if I play Cuphead, I'm probably going to die 1,000 times, and maybe I would give up on it. But does that mean I want to deny that experience to someone else? Like, I think that was silly.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel the same way. Like, I want to play Cuphead, but even growing up, when I used to play side-scrollers a lot, that's not been my specialty. I've just never been, like, the old-school Mega Man games, I've never been that good at them. I know Cuphead has a lot more movement mechanics, so maybe I'd be better at that, but still, point being is, like, I'm intimidated to start. So, yeah, can I get where people are coming from where they're like, it's too hard, I want to play it too. Yes, but like Lone just said, I don't think every game's for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
we should just add microtransactions, right?
We could
just skip to the end, right?
Yeah, or we could just give everybody a fucking trophy for showing up. Bullshit. I don't believe that everybody should be able to be in the Olympics. Sometimes difficulty requires a certain subset of skills. And if you're not there, you can't join that subset. So guess what? If you consider Cuphead the Olympics of 2D side-scrollers, then that argument falls away. And the fact is somebody like myself who I'm good at very particular genres of games, not 2D side-scrollers. So I died more than I would say some other people did, I'm sure. And I was able to beat it. So it's like, I mean, it is hard. It is. Dark Souls, I think, because it's a 3D game and there's so many things going on, is actually harder because of just the way everything can matter and your roles. With Cuphead, it's a couple skills and a couple specials, and then you go for it. And it's hard and crunchy in an old quarter muncher style way. And that's okay. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with
Definitely fits the style of the game.
And you know what the equivalent is? It would, in my opinion, it would be like if someone said, look, I really want to watch the new It movie, but can you have a mode where you take out the jump scares because I don't want to be scared when I watch it? Like, it's a very similar thing.
Yeah.
And some games just like, here's the thing. I don't want to undermine the artistic vision of this developer. If this developer wanted to create a really cool 1930s cartoony game and have it be very hard, who the fuck has the right to question that person's decision? Right. It's his game, or it's their game.
Well, the nice thing is people spoke with their wallet, right?
Yeah.
Because they bought it. It's selling really well.
And it has hundreds of thousands on Steam and whatever on Xbox.
No, I didn't know that.
Wasn't it like 150,000 within like 2 days or some crazy?
Yeah.
That's good.
I'll have a look now.
And
and it's an indie game, absolutely.
And it's an indie game. Well,
it has over 300,000 owners on Steam.
It's somewhat of an indie game, but
somewhat, because it was funded by
Microsoft did fund them. That's why it'll never.
But the dev did like remortgage their houses and like take a huge risk with this, and
Very
it's paying
good for
off for
them.
them.
See, those are the
Right?
stories I
Absolutely.
love.
Yeah.
I love
Right.
hearing that. Like, okay, I don't love hearing that. You know, I wish they wouldn't have to inconvenience themselves to make the game, but the fact that they felt so passionate about their work, that they believed in their vision so much that they did that, you know, that's amazing to me. That's incredible.
And if you watch the video of them talking about its development and how they're like, look, the only way that we could possibly achieve that 1930s look is by fucking hand drawing everything.
Yeah.
You can hear the passion seeping out of them. And if they wanted to make the game hard, again, that's their choice. Like, that's the game that they wanted to create. And I guarantee you, I guarantee you this game would not be popular if it had an easy mode and everyone could just play it, because that's the appeal. There are people on YouTube and Twitch struggling, you know, with playing this game, and people are like, "Ooh, I want to try that."
Well,
Would
let's
I
be
bad
honest.
at
How
the
many?
game?
We've talked about this before, where you know, I've successfully run Kickstarters and not successfully run them, and found out that the ones that weren't successful was because I didn't charge enough. Because there is something to be said about a hurdle of difficulty or money or whatever, where that people attach a worth to it. And to me, people see Cuphead and they go, "Oh, it is hard. There is this strange barrier of entry, which makes it interesting." And they start watching it. Because even people I know on my channel who are like, "I can't play this." First of all, I think they can. But second, it allows them to look. And then there's a Let's Play. And they're like, "Okay, great. Like, I'm going to watch a Let's Play and see." And it's, I want more games like the Dark Souls, more games like Cuphead, more games that are difficult in the different genres, so that people can. You have to have your foot against something and go, this is the limit here in difficulty. This is the limit we've been giving casual. And then in the middle now, we sort of know these two walls, because without boundaries, you get some really fucked up stuff. And I love it, man. I mean, I think it's such a great idea. And the fact that they took a double risk, mortgaging homes and all that stuff, but then also saying we're still going to make it balls hard, which is sort of weird. You know, it's sort of crazy when you think that they put their foot down and was like, no, we're still going to do this. Because I bet you somebody at Microsoft, at least one person, was like,
raise their hand, be like,
"Are you sure?"
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
I mean, that, and I think we would too. If I was in that meeting and they said it's going to cost a bunch, we're going to hand draw everything, it's going to be a fucking 2D side scroll, it's going to be super fucking hard, and we're not going to have an easy mode, I'd probably be the first one to be like,
did you guys crunch the fucking numbers?
Let's pause for a second. So
well, the other thing is that it's excellent, it's selling well because it's been developed for a while. I don't know how much the development costs were, but that's definitely really good to hear.
4 years, right? Or 5?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those games we were just talking about earlier a couple months ago, where we were thinking, like, you know, when's this game going to drop, you know? And so...
Yeah, because didn't we surprise you, Maddie, when we said it was coming in October, and you were like, wait, what?
Yeah, and I had no clue. No clue.
Well, let's just say...
also, real quick, I just have to say, bravo to them. No bugs. Sorry.
Wow,
that's really good.
That's huge, too, for a difficulty-based game. That's huge.
I was saying that let's assume, based on the conversation that Karak and I had the other week, let's assume it was 5 people, $10,000 a month for 4 years. That's $2.4 million in development at minimum.
Advertising at minimum.
I don't even know how, like, if it's 5 developers or there's a little bit more in their team. It seemed like it was a small number. But whatever it is, like, that's a huge risk for them to take. And I don't believe they had the Microsoft deal before they took that risk.
All I remember from their development team is this picture of this guy named Chuck from Cuphead going around.
Yeah.
Did you guys see it? And this guy's like buff as shit, and he's like, "Yeah, I just made a beast fucking game too."
Chuck.
So funny.
It reminds me of Gigantic, the developers. I went and saw them at a PAX, and one of their developers is just Norwegian ripped, like the kind of Viking shit that you just don't ever see. And he came over and he's like, and you know, a lot of people would be like, you know, Karak's pretty big. And I looked up this guy and I stood up and I'm like, motherfucker, you need to stop lifting weights. Like, you need to take a month off, because he's just like, "You want to play our game, Gigantic?" And I'm like, "No, I'd rather run," to be brutally honest. So yeah, it's I love to see, like, people who are just that dichotomy there is hilarious. Yeah, it's good stuff, man. I'm super stoked for them, and I would love to see, honestly. There's already discussions on multiple forums. What would be the next art style that the Cuphead developers could do? And I'm just sitting there going like,
has to be that.
I'm just like, imagine, you know, each year, each decade.
Is there any game that with a sequel, like, it has gone, you know, side by side with, like, okay, we're moving ahead, we should move the art style ahead too in time? Have we ever seen that really before?
Escape from Dead Island and Dead Island. Escape from Dead Island was cel shaded and absolutely terrible. So but I haven't seen it. I don't think people have
not quite like this.
Do it. You know, I think it's hard. I mean,
It's really unique.
But
Has
Tom,
it sold
you
enough to justify a sequel?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I wonder
Okay,
how much.
I'm
it
just
sold on
asking because
Xbox.
I actually wasn't 100% sure. That's good.
I would assume at 150,000, it probably sold enough for the Microsofts, and devs to start going, okay, let's look at, how we're going to handle extra support at the Intel, because it'll keep selling. Because usually things that sell that well at the starting continue to, because it means that there aren't a lot of bugs, whatever. They have a good tail, yeah. And I would assume at 350,000 just on Steam. Is that what or just on?
Yeah, around that.
Don't know what's on Windows, and we don't know what's on Xbox.
Exactly,
so
and it's probably more on Xbox, is my guess.
It's probably more on Xbox, yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Gotta be
it's
at least
awesome.
500,000.
And again,
it's over 500,000.
absolutely, because the game was the way it was, and you change that, just put an easy mode that you can play and makes the game really easy. I guarantee you, if that was there, the game will not be doing as well, because it would be like any other game that had easy, normal, hard, very hard, and very hard could be the hardest fucking thing in the world. But if you could play it on easy, then it's not known as that game that's really hard.
Right.
It's like a game that has a difficulty setting.
I also think that, if you have, it almost feels like it would be contradicting itself if you have a game that's set just, about the 1930s, or, an art style based off that, rather. It's got so much of an old school vibe, but yet the gameplay is really easy, unlike when we were growing up with games like that where they were rock hard, So I think
TMNT.
Oh yeah,
there's people who still haven't beat that fucking game. Ninja Gaiden, the old one, Shinobi.
Those games are fucking hard.
I'm a big fan of like the old co-ops or the old coin ops. Sorry, and you would have some crazy games. And luckily, this one, it is a quarter muncher style game. We do have to be honest and say that obviously they took some license from that. But I think they nailed it for this, and I think it opens up the door for other people to go, okay, but I also do think if one of these elements is sort of a pyramid, if one of the elements wasn't there, it may not have done as well. For example, if it didn't look this good, I do not think we'd be talking about it as much.
No, you're right.
If it looked this way, I think that's one huge thing. I think the difficulty's huge. And I think also, it's going to surprise a lot of people, but we've now seen this with, what's the game that was, Titanfall. Xbox exclusives can do well. And I think that it's time for, Titanfall, the original, actually in its long tail did quite well as an exclusive. And there were people who were like, oh, it will be impossible, and it didn't do as well as 2, as far as I remember. There's a lot of people who I had them in my thread where they were like, dude, this is awesome. I'm going to dust off my Xbox One because I've been using the PC or the PS4, and I'm going to play. And there are a ton of people who that's what they were doing. They were like, this is fucking incredible.
I haven't dusted off my Xbox since, I'd say, Halo Wars 2. That was February. That's how long it's been.
And what a bad idea.
I just don't play
for that
Xbox anymore.
Oh.
All right. Cuphead's difficulty, finito. Let's talk a little bit about Fortnite. Some legal trouble hitting Unreal, potentially. Bluehole Studios, the company who made PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, has an issue with that really less with the mode that has been included with Fortnite now, and more so that the partner Unreal Engine, who Bluehole worked with to create this, has worked with Fortnite, so they're feeling that they might take legal action. I did a little research on this because I'm not the biggest legal expert. I'd say Lone is, or Karak is here. But from what I could tell, it doesn't make sense to how you can compile an argument, because you can't own a genre or a gameplay style. Otherwise, we wouldn't see other open world games. We wouldn't see other side scrollers, other shooters. So does Fortnite, or I'm sorry, does Bluehole Studios have anything to stand on with a legal argument here, from your opinions?
My opinion is no. In copyright, you can't copyright an idea. You can copyright an expression of an idea. That's the general rule. So they can't, Bluehole, copyright the whole battle royale mode, because let's be honest, they're not the first at it. And if they weren't the first at it, and that was the case, then no one else could do a battle royale mode. And it's a similar thing. Whoever made the first FPS, if they could copyright that, then no one else would be allowed to make FPSs anymore. So from a legal perspective, I don't think they have a leg to stand on, but I still do think that they'll probably settle out of court, just so Unreal avoids something here.
Okay. What about you, Karak?
Yeah, after Dennis Dyack sued him, they won against Dennis, but they obviously showed their ass there a little bit, and I think that Bluehole probably knows that. Ark, the developer of Ark, got sued because he left with some information from a past title, took it into Ark. They lost some money there. I think if they're going to do anything, it's going to be settled out of court, and they're not going to go the copyright stance. They're going to go information of a particular
Trade
nature.
secrets, yeah.
Trade secrets was passed on, and they have a foot to stand on is so weird in legal terms because you only have it depending on what judge you have and it can change. So it's like it depends on what quicksand you're on at that exact moment. But the fact is Unreal's been sued before, successfully defended it and got money back, but it doesn't mean that they didn't that sort of black mark is against them, that they've had some issues in the past. It's a little bit like Randy Pitchford and Alien Colonial Marines. Like people will remember that for a long time, right? And you sort of attach this person to this thing or this company to this thing. So I think that I think in all honesty, if I were them, I would step away and say, we don't like this, but because it is only this one company that we have an issue with, and because we don't have the ability to copyright, we're just going to say we feel like some things went wrong or went poorly here, but we're going to move on. And the only reason I say that is because financially they don't need to sue them. They could say that they need to sue them because it proves something, but their proof of something is going to be so soft that it's not like Ark. That guy actually took if you read the notes, that guy had some shit that he actually took. Yeah. And this is like, it's a lot softer than that.
It's like, to me, I just look at it from my perspective. It's as if someone from Ubisoft said, hey, you have towers in your game that unlock waypoints and go, we're going to sue you. Like, that's how I'm looking at it.
Assassins.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it's a mechanic. It's a game style. I mean, I don't know if you guys have had the chance to play Fortnite's Battle Royale mode at all.
I did, finally.
All right,
finally.
So yeah, it's got, it's roughly the same thing, same HUD. You got your team on the top left, you got the map on the right, map layout and the way it's kind of grid-based. It all feels familiar with PUBG, but there's one defining mechanic in Fortnite that completely separates it from PUBG, and that's the building. The map's a little more tight. It's a lot smaller because it's on consoles. That's another advantage it has. It's free to play. That's another advantage. But because the map's tighter, you're running into encounters a little bit more. And because of that, you got to build on the fly, set up a fort, and then there's destructibility. So you can
plays differently.
Yeah.
It plays.
Exactly. You can take a rocket launcher, blow up someone's fort, and all of a sudden someone who's sitting behind a stair set is now completely exposed. It's a blast. I have been enjoying the absolute hell out of it. Not that I don't like PUBG. I'm actually making a video on it. But it's not that I don't like PUBG. I've put like 40 hours in the PUBG. I've had a great time with it. I just like the dynamic nature in this game a lot more because I like, stumbling upon someone's player creation in some part of the map and seeing how they're trying to build out for this situation. Yeah, it rewards your creativity in a way.
And this is why I think Karak's absolutely right when he says that this is going to be less of a copyright stance, because for every reason that you just stated, Matty, it's probably why this would fail in court. But this could probably be a contractual issue. I mean, they maybe in their terms when they were working with Unreal with the engine, like any information, any trade secrets, anything of that kind that's been communicated between us for this game, you can't use it. And that very well could be the case. And if it's a contractual issue, then it's probably going to be settled out of court. And also as well, I mean, Fortnite used PUBG in their advertising and marketing. They said, we are like PUBG. So that gives them a little bit more of a leg to stand on to at least force a settlement. But in terms of court on a copyright, no. Like, again, like, could you imagine if... What was the first proper FPS? Was it Doom? Was it Doom that did it? And everything after...
Wolfenstein.
Well, whatever it was. Or Wolfenstein, right? And then everything...
I can never remember it.
Yeah, every game after that game that wants to be an FPS, well, they can't, because if it's an FPS, we own the copyright. I mean, could you imagine if Bethesda owned the copyright on FPSs solely?
You'd think so, with all their published games. They're all first-person shooters.
But that's exactly the reason why copyright doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
that is definitely the reason.
Yeah, because it'd be a really stale industry if we only got one type of game from one developer all the time.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, if we talk past this, the one thing I am worried about is that we may see Unreal or third-party companies making engines a little less helpful, because Unreal has done some huge strides for the community lately with, like, they've changed their licensing so everybody can get it. Remember, Unreal was hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, it was redonkulous how much it cost. And so they've done all these things, and they have a huge, even Dennis Dyack, despite all the negativity, he was like, the one thing they are is really helpful. And I'm going to tell you, if you put your hand out too many times and you get bit, you will say, fuck you, starve. And I don't want that, because we've had developers who've said, without Unreal's help, we couldn't have done this special effect. Without Microsoft's help, without Sony's help. How many times do we hear somebody say, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo flew developers out to assist us? If everybody flies to assist us, it happens all the time. And if you ever have somebody say, we're going to sue them now, then a Sony, a Microsoft, or a Nintendo will be like, well, then we're never sending anybody ever again. Like, and I don't want that. But I also don't want, if this was happening, I don't want an Unreal to get away with this kind of stuff either. And that's why I think we'll never really know as well. It'll be, you know, a lot of it I think will be behind the scenes.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you even prove that?
I don't think we'll hear about this again from either of them, unless it's kind of this joint statement where they're singing Kumbaya together.
Yep, and it'll be like sealed document. Like it'll be one of those situations where it's like, behind closed doors, we have figured out a thing and we're good to go. And
we would like to thank everyone for their interest.
And you'll find out that Unreal is going to be supporting PUBG with their next game or something. You know, like that's what'll happen. They'll work it out, and I guess that's probably the best for the industry.
What's interesting is at this moment, and I just played it last night, Friday, 5:40 p.m. So unless something's changed since then, this game, free to play wise, is not monetized. There's no crates you can buy, no microtransactions. You can download for free, access the mode for free, play it for free, everything. So right now they're not making money off the idea. Does that change anything? I was one of the people who invested in early access, but this was way before the mode was even conceptualized, I think, and it's been a while.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't change it. And the reason why is because we've seen people with mods get in trouble for various reasons, and those were free too. So there's always, remember, it is America too. You can sue anybody for whatever the fuck you want. And so and that's unfortunate, because our legal system is built the opposite way of the way it should be. And they can do that. But no, I mean, we've seen mods for years be shut down and be this and be that. So and they were free. It doesn't matter. There's always a leg to stand on in an American court. It's just, like I said, what quicksand you're on at that time. Will that judge just say, fuck you? We've seen some judges, too, that have really been, especially with digital rights, it seems like some courts are starting to like get more knowledgeable, which is nice, where they're like, okay, we've now handled this 40 fucking times. So, but again, like Lone said, do you want them involved? Like, maybe, I mean, I guess that's sort of what I'm saying, is I almost wish they hadn't, and behind closed doors had figured something out, because the more you get the government involved, the more you might have some pretty crazy regulations or fees, and all of a sudden people are like, I can't make the game.
Let's put it this way. I mean, ask why games are banned in Australia. It's because we're one of the few countries in the world, I think it's Australia, Brazil, South Korea maybe, and a small amount of others. We're one of the few countries in the world that has the government actively involved in classifying games. Yep. And as a result of that, they can say, well, we don't want these kinds of games being sold. And that's exactly what happens, right? And that's exactly why Fallout 3 was banned. It's exactly why the original South Park was banned. Because if they don't want something to happen, that's why
I thought it was the
MedX
morphine. Yeah.
That's exactly why. And also as well, there was a injecting drug animation, which people don't know.
Shit.
Fallout 3 was meant to have you showing yourself injecting MedX.
Like Far Cry 2, where you're like
exactly, or like Bioshock, right? And the problem was it was called morphine. So the Australian government got a bit edgy and said that they were going to ban it. Now, is that what you want with games in the US?
Yeah, that's terrible. Well,
exactly.
So how do they handle a movie like Train Spotters or something?
Oh, they're much easier on movies.
Why? Oh, because it's not interactive.
Yeah, I was going to say,
not interactive.
You're actually in Fallout 3, for example, you'd be directly.
I get it. Yeah.
That was a problem with Fallout 4, right? Because in Fallout 4 with the stim pack, you literally fire it right into
you inject it, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? If that was called morphine, I guarantee you Fallout 4 would be banned. Because even with R18 games, you can't have drug use that's incentivized with rewards in the game. You can't have like a real world drug, and this happens with Saints Row recently as well. Like you can't have a real world drug give you a bonus in a game.
Wow. What? That's an awesome rule. Not because it's good, but because I would never have thought of that. Like you could have sat me in a room and said, think up rules. And I would have never said, okay, a drug can't give you a perk. That's why you take them in every game. It's like I take them because they give me a perk. So what about alcohol? So you drink.
No, they're not hard on alcohol. They're so really hard. It's drugs and it's sexual violence is kind of the key things that the government here really focuses on.
So what about Hellblade? Did that get banned?
No, but Outlast 2 originally did because with that. See, Outlast 2 is a funny one because the publishers sent the wrong video file to the classification board here, and that contained footage of an alpha early version of the game, and that had like a really fucked up. I think it was like an orgy scene or something.
It did, yeah.
And the game was cancelled here, or it was refused classification, and then they're like, shit, we sent them the wrong file. So,
that's fine.
It was fucked. Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, again, the point with that is that do you want the government involved in every single aspect of games? Which and this is why with microtransactions, people are like, well, it should be regulated. I'm like, self-regulated. Like, do you want the government to be looking at every single game and saying that's okay, that's not okay?
Yeah, I guess I should change my stance because I might have even stated government in the podcast prior, but I agree. Yeah, I mean regulation. The thing is,
like
the
ESRB.
Yeah, but it's hard for us to believe anybody will. I think that's the real worry, right? Do we believe an EA and an Activision are going to high-five each other while they're both trying to shiv each other at the same time and say, let's agree on this one thing?
Or not unless government cottons on. Like, look what's happened with fantasy sports in the US. I mean, they could take a hard stance. I mean, this is what happened. Yeah. Like, this is why you guys have the ESRB. It was Mortal Kombat being too violent. Some governors and some states in the US saying, we want to ban this. And publishers got together and said, no, we'll regulate ourselves because we know what the hell we're doing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it could. I'm not saying that it's never going to happen. I mean, it could happen. I think it could happen with YouTubers and Let's Plays. They'll come together, have some sort of a mutual agreement and said, you know, whoever signs on, these kinds of videos are okay. So at least Let's Plays and streamers have clarity as to what they're doing. But now it's kind of a wink and nod agreement. Yeah, right. Between publishers and streamers. So
interesting.
Yeah,
for sure. Next topic. Let's talk about Chris Avellone. This man blowing up the internet intentionally, unintentionally. Not too
fucking
sure
intentionally.
Yet.
Dude, come on. It was intentional.
Changes his profile picture on Facebook. It's the stick figures that Chris is known for drawing for during development, just to either bring some laughs to the room or to bring an idea to life. This time around, it's his little stick figure hugging the Vault Boy, and it says, "I've missed you so much." Past tense, hinting, hey, I'm with you now. We're all good. Chris is a freelance writer. He's worked on Fallout 2, Fallout New Vegas, amongst many other games like KOTOR 2, Prey, Divinity Original Sin 2. I think he worked on Neverwinter. I'm not sure.
He was the original designer for Fallout Van Buren as well.
There you go. So he's worked on a lot of stuff, and very good stuff at that. And since he's freelance now, there is a chance that he could have been hired by whatever company to start working on a new Fallout game. I think none of us have a doubt that a new Fallout game's coming soon, eventually, because of Fallout 4's commercial success. So do you think with Chris's follow-up, where he posted a picture, now his profile picture has changed. I have to get the exact quote, but I think it was something like, uh-oh, now people are watching, or something along those lines.
He's fucking with you. That's exactly what he's doing. He's
toying with us. What could it possibly mean? Let's get your thoughts as I grab the official quote.
So it is. There it is again. That sense of being watched as he's hugging the Vault Boy.
There it is. That sense of being watched.
Is it good? No, I don't think it means anything. Like, I made a video. Do I think that this means Chris is never working on a Fallout game ever again, or is not working on one now? No, that's not what I'm saying. But one picture that's 2 years old, mind you, that he drew back in 2015 does not mean anything, in my opinion. And the fact that he uploaded that second picture means he's fucking toying with us. Like, in a fun way. Like, that's Chris. Like, he's a really eclectic, cool guy. Yes. And I genuinely think that's what he's doing.
Correct. Karak, hot take?
Same. Exact same. I think it was a complete joke. I told you the story when we got to listen to him tell stories at GDC. He's hilarious. He likes to goof around,
cool dude.
And I think, in all honesty, it's like a lot of us talk about just staying positive all the time. I think for him, he's just like, whatever, people freak, but I'm just still going to be me and still have a good time. And this is what I posted, and move on. And I do believe I wouldn't say can ignore the issues, but he has the way and the people he's dealt with and the stresses he's dealt with. I think he's just like, meh. He just moves on.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because for the position I'm in, it's like, okay, this might be a new Fallout game. So I reach out to Chris for comment. I'm like, hey man, if this is not what people think it is, I know you can't really give a direct answer because you confirm or deny that's probably fucking you over. But I'm saying if this is something you want me to clear up or try to help clear up rather, just let me know. And like, he didn't respond. And usually Chris gets back to me. Chris gets back to me like that, and I'm like, okay, what's going on now? So it's one of those things he can't comment on. He might have accidentally found himself dug into a hole.
Remember, exactly. I was just going to say, and Lone can back me up here. A lot of times, if you say no, you're saying yes to something else. That's what if you say no to one thing, you're saying no forever. We saw that before where it's like developers post something and people think they promised something. It might be a situation where he's like, it completely means nothing, but any yes or no answer causes a ruckus all by itself, and yet he doesn't want to stop living. So he's like, I'm still going to post it. I'm just not going to respond to it. And I think that probably is exactly what's happened. Is he's like, I mean, because another thing is, there's a joke in politics where if you ask somebody's aide if the person that they work for has thought about something, the person can't answer, because if they say no, that means the person's thought about it, and you can't ask them because then they have thought about it. So do you still beat your wife is sometimes the joke that goes around. You say no, meaning you did. You say yes, you're an asshole. So you're screwed, right? And that's sort of the closed in. Yeah, you just don't answer. And I think that, and if people get mad at that example, that's an example that's been used for years about a closed-ended, very
it's a good example.
Horrible way.
You're an ass no matter what.
You're an ass no matter what. And I think that that's probably what happened here. Probably. Yeah. And also, he doesn't want to ruin the future, right? Because if he says no, somebody will go 6 months ago, you said no, but you are now.
They'll
and he's like,
archive the shit out of his tweets. Like they have like a folder.
Yeah, Fallout fans are like
a folder.
Fucking wild ex-girlfriend that just digs up all this shit you said.
Waybackmachine.com. What the fuck did you say 3 years ago?
It's
Google Cache, right?
Like, kind of tailing off what Karak said. I've been saying for a while that sometimes, ironically, silence speaks the most in the games industry, because if you're not saying anything. That's what I said about Obsidian. People were always saying, oh man, Obsidian's pleading again to work on Fallout. I'm like, that probably means that they're not working. Not probably, that means they're not working on one. Why are you pleading if you're working on one? You don't. So when they stop pleading for multiple years, that's when there might be a chance.
Yep.
Because then they'll actually be working on it, and they don't have to say, oh, we wish. Like, I'm just waiting for that developer to do that reverse psychology and actually say, like, we wish we were, and then, like, 2 weeks later they announce that they're working on that. Or it's a release date.
And that would be lambasted online, or whatever that term is.
Lambasted. Yeah.
Lambasted, yeah.
Because people always thought Bethesda was trying to do that. Because I remember, what was it, the
That's
Video
what I'm
Game
thinking
Awards
right now.
2014.
Exactly.
Jeff Keighley was like, we got a special announcement with Bethesda, and like nothing happened with them. Like, or he went out to dinner with them, and we're all thinking like Fallout 4 was going to be announced at VGX, and it never happened.
That is what happened. He posted the tweet about going out to dinner and big news, and no big news ever came out.
Ever. Yeah. And people were like, what? Is this kind of reverse psychology here? And they were like, oh, Bethesda might have delayed it and stuff. So, oh, man.
Good times.
Yeah, good times. Anyway, we'll just move on to the next topic. More important stuff to discuss rather. New Vegas potentially ruined by consoles. So I'm going loosely off what Lone had told me. That the level designer, you said, of New Vegas told people that if it weren't for consoles, that the game would have been like 10 times better.
Pretty much, and I'm just pulling up the article here, so I'm not misquoting him. I believe it was a level designer. So Scott Everett, I think his name is.
Okay.
Says the restrictions of the game engine brought about by the console's release forced his team to strip away a lot of their initial ideas. He was interviewed by PC Games.END. The game would have been a lot different if it was PC only. We had a lot of plans early on. Here is where the water is stored. Here's where the farms are. Here's what the government is centralized. We had it all planned out. We could have gone further with it, but we had to simplify so we had less stuff that would bog down the game engine. We would have had fewer performance issues. We did break it up a bit, but from my point of view, it was a performance-related game, and we had to fix things. And that's bearing in mind that, remember, New Vegas on consoles at launch was a buggy mess.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Is anybody else besides me really happy that happened? I think Fallout 3 is better because of the way it is now. The idea
absolutely.
of adding more complexity actually does not make me go, man, I really wish I got to see that version. Maybe that's just me, but I love
at the
3.
time. I mean, I was a 360 gamer, so if New Vegas was just released on PC, I never would have played it. And like me looking back with hindsight, I wouldn't have wanted that to happen because then I wouldn't play the game.
Yeah, I mean,
and I just mean gameplay.
We were talking about this beforehand, so I'll resurrect the question also for the viewers. Wouldn't that apply for most games? You know, isn't the PC?
Every game, pretty much. Yeah.
Back then, you know, I still remember the big story. Microsoft wasn't going to put 512 megabytes of RAM in the 360 at all until Cliff and what's his name built the Gears of War level with 256 megabytes and 512 and showed them both. And Bill Gates was like, "Doom, do it right now." Like there's no comparison, and that's only 512. So the new ones with 8, I was telling these guys prior to the podcast, there's far less of an issue now because you had such a big jump from 512 to 8. And the fact that a lot of PC gamers are at 16, and that's a far easier crunch to hit. But yeah, I would say most games, you know, there was something that was adjusted, you know, in some way to fit into that memory footprint, which is freakishly small.
Of course. I mean, you look at games coming out to the Switch, for instance, which is less... it does not have the hardware capabilities compared to even Xbox One or PS4. So games like FIFA 18 have significantly or a lot of less features than FIFA 18 on any other consoles. I mean, that's a clear example there of showing you that hardware obviously matters. And if they were just able to create games for the PC, which, you know, people have all this cool hardware and they're able to upgrade as their heart's content, of course they would have bigger and grander games. Does it mean the games are better? Of course not. But they would at least have the potential to be bigger and grander in scale.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I'm happy with the way New Vegas turned out after the patches and playing it on PC. So it's like this is kind of one of those comments where I'm pretty indifferent on it. It's like, all right, that's cool. So could have a lot of games, but you know, I'm happy with the way this one turned out. So I don't know if I'd really want change.
Or we can compare it, Matty, to Fallout 4, where a lot of people feel it is a lesser game and it was created for hardware that it was vastly improved. Good point. Like,
good point.
And you're talking to somebody who did not like 3 at first at all. Yeah. So it's like, for me to say that, it's I think it's cool that they do go out there and say that stuff. You also see PC developers say making for console has helped us because we've understood accessibility a little bit more. So I think it does go both ways, good and bad too. And you will hear that a lot of times. Or how many times this has happened, and I know most people are going to get mad at me. There are times where you're playing a game on your PC and a console controller works very well for whatever you're doing. Like, it just works well, whether it be an XCOM or something. You're like, you know what? This is not bad for a controller. I can lean back, whatever. Sometimes PC developers will say that. They'll be like, yeah, the advent of, you know, console controller has helped us allow for more people to play it comfortably in this way or whatever. And I think that's great. So
I think third-person games for me. I mean, I know people love to play mouse and keyboard no matter what their layout, but if it's a third-person game, I just prefer controllers. It's much more comfortable to me. You know.
I completely agree because I love to. My favorite thing and why I game on consoles a lot, despite having a powerful PC, is I love to kick my legs up when I play games. And
sit on a couch.
I can't do that with a keyboard and a mouse. It's just that's how I grew up playing. I'd always have my feet up and I'd be leaning back in my chair, and I can only do that to some extent with the keyboard and the mouse. So that's why I can't game on PC with the controller, and I do a lot of the times. But I don't like to always be so hunched over like that.
Do you know what I liked about like XCOM was I could lean back and XCOM was almost all mouse. And so I was, and it's turn-based, so there's no, you got to do this now. And there were times where I was like, and I would wake up and go, fuck, my neck hurts. I can't figure out why. And it dawned on me, it's because I was doing this for like 6 hours because I was sitting weird, just relaxed, just playing with my mouse and keyboard. And I was like, why did I not grab my controller? I should have just grabbed the, I didn't even think about it for some reason. But that kind of stuff I think is cool because it goes both ways. Feeds back.
Yeah. But like, you know, I know some people that have commented about this story that have said, well, of course it's the case for every game, but they've said that I wish games were just released for PC. To that I say, like, I personally wouldn't want that. I mean, there are millions of gamers on the console that just want to play a game on the console, and you're going to get your games that are just released on PC, all right? And there'll be those hardcore experiences that try and take advantage of the hardware. But do you really want a world where, like, in this current state, I mean, if in the future, if publishers and developers wanted to just develop for PC and we had no consoles, it's different. But now, given that there are so many people on consoles, I understand that the games might be bigger and grander in scale if they were just developed for PC. But I don't want to deprive people of gaming experiences just because they decided to go with the console. I mean, I was going to use a word, but I won't. But yeah.
All right. Let's go on to The Evil Within 2. Lone, you wanted to talk about this a little bit because you've been playing The Evil Within 1, and you're not too impressed.
So I played Evil Within 2 before playing Evil Within 1, and I was like, okay, this seems like a cool game. You know, it looks cool. You have your weapons, you have your green slime that you pick up, and these axes that you can use against enemies, and they explode. And I'm like, all right, that's really cool. Mm-hmm. I'm going to play Evil Within 1 now. And I played it, and I'm like, this is the exact fucking same. Okay. And maybe that's not a bad thing, but so far I've played 6 hours of Evil Within 1. It's a very, very slow-paced game.
Correct.
The story is really confusing.
Yeah.
I mean, literally in 6 hours, all I know is that you're in a crazy hospital. There's this guy that can teleport, and the guy named Leslie who's running around is a test subject. Like, that's all I know. I have no idea what the fuck is going on in this game.
It's one of those stories that I literally, and I remember this from my review because it's like the only game I can think of that I've had to say it for. I like this story, but for the first like 8-9 hours, you have no clue what's going on.
Oh, so I've got another 2 hours of this.
Yeah.
So like, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. But in terms of gameplay, the reason why this is relevant to Evil Within 2 is because just from my small experience with Evil Within 2, and that's only been an hour, I'm like, okay, first up, I thought that the gameplay was okay, but what's different? Like, what's changed from Evil Within 1? Because it seems the exact same. I don't know what's actually different. And maybe you guys can answer that for me, because are there better upgrades? Are there?
We had a discussion last week, and we were trying to remember, because Karak and I were like, I said I didn't like something, but then we talked about it again.
I said I would play Evil Within.
Yeah. The stats and all that stuff, yeah.
So
what upgrades were available?
Yeah, I was gonna say you have recency memory right now, Lone. So what upgrades were there? Because now we can finally get our answer to that.
All right, Evil Within 1, you get your green slime. Obviously, there are upgrades with like just your character, so you can have a faster. You can run more from like 3 to 4 to 5 seconds. Okay. You have better unarmed and punching.
Are these stats or abilities? Are they attributes?
I would call them stats, because they're like stats that you can run for a second longer if you upgrade that particular whatever you.
But I mean, is it called like stamina?
I think it is called stamina.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I remember the second one. You spend the green slime on it. Yeah. All right. So there's that.
So you've got that with like your own individual self, and then you've got each individual weapon that has upgrades. So you can improve your critical chance, the damage, the reload time with each weapon, like your pistol, your shotgun, etc.
Okay.
And then there's like specific upgrades for the bolt, the crossbow thing. Mm-hmm. And then there are other things like you can increase how much ammunition you can store and how much of those, I call them stim packs, whatever those fucking health injections are. Yeah. You can have like, instead of 3, you can have 4 or 5.
All right.
So those generally are the upgrades.
That's all in the Evil Within 2. So what is new?
I don't know. And remember, I read the IGN article, and when we talked about this months ago, I read it during the podcast. I wish I could find this, but you and I were both like, "Whoa, this sounds." So it could have just been
the word,
it could have been because I think we were like, they're going to add crafting for bullets, and you can do it while you're in them. Because I think our worry was that you'd be in a scary game, and you'd be standing there in a pause menu making bullets. Yeah. And I think we were like, what is happening? And
I think that
the way it was worded, you and I were both like, oh no, they're adding, and they were in the thing
like
that I was reading,
adventure kind of game, and
it did
survival horror
and
setting.
that's why I distinctly asked about attributes, because there's a difference between skill trees with no attributes, where hey, you can run more. We were just talking about Rabbids does that, where each one has a skill tree, or an attribute like stamina, which affects multiple things, and
so it would be attributes,
yeah. And I think we were thinking that it was adding even more. It sounds like
now that I think about it, I mean, I don't think it's done a huge thing. I think the biggest changes that it's made so far is one, the setting, like absolutely. I mean, Evil Within 1, it's like different stages and really close confined areas, but Evil Within 2 was much more open. Like you're in that town. And you could do a little bit more, and it was much more free space. But then I'd also remember in Evil Within 2, you could pick... I wasn't just picking up green slime. I was picking up, like, gunpowder and other shit. Yeah. So that's... like, those are two changes that I will admit that's there. But elsewhere, you're using the same pistol...
points to really hammer home, like, this is a sequel.
No, it's like this is the game that they wanted to create for Evil Within 1, or maybe that they should have. Because instantly with Evil Within 2, I'm like, this story is getting me into it. It's nicely paced. Like I see what's going on. And it was like, you're tracking your daughter, and there's this cool mechanic where you can see through her perspective. Like as a standalone, when I first played Evil Within 2, it just seemed good.
Remember, he played a different.
I played a different.
Right. This is like an ongoing mystery.
It is an ongoing mystery. But after playing Evil Within 1, I'm like, okay, they've changed some things, but I don't think it's a big deal. Like, this seems more like Evil Within 1.5.
I in a weird way, I think that's good news, because the changes we thought they were adding did not sound like it would work very well in a horror game. It sounded like Tomb Raider with some scary elements. And we were like, what's happening?
That's true.
To be honest, Evil Within 1's not even that scary either.
It's not.
Well, you know what I mean.
I know what you. I definitely know what you mean.
Whatever the term is, I don't even know.
That's for me, bro. I'm a pussy when it comes to these games, and like, I don't think it's the first one scary at all. Second one does look a little bit creepy. Like I said, I'll be honest and say when I was playing, I turned it down just a little bit when things were getting intense, because I didn't want to make a fool of myself for like 5 other YouTubers be like like that. So I was like, all right, let me just keep my cool here. But
it seems less linear, I will say, with Evil Within 2.
Okay.
Which is a better thing.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. My plan is just, because I was gonna replay Evil Within 1, and I'm like, that sounds like a pain in the ass.
Don't do it. No, I recommend you don't.
Yeah, I was just gonna watch a summary and
watch a summary. Read the wiki, something like that.
Just take a real casual approach to it.
Yeah.
Just because, I played the first one, I enjoyed it a lot, but this second one, I'm so unsure on it, and it's coming out soon. Next week we'll be talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. It's
13th.
Yeah, I got to admit, and for those of you that are out there that are interested in Evil Within 2, I would genuinely say, don't play the first one, because it might sour you a little bit. It soured me a little bit on the second game, which I don't think is a good thing.
It's one of those story resets in a way, because the whole narrative approach in Evil Within 1 versus 2 is so different, because in the first one it's very confusing. Sebastian's got like a couple one-liners like, what the hell happened?
Oh my god, don't get me started about the characters.
In this one he talks a lot more. There's a lot. It's a lot clearer what's happening. So I agree with Lone. I did enjoy the Evil Within 1, but I feel like its time has passed where you might as well just wait for the second one.
Dude, like when I played Evil Within 2, I'm like, Sebastian seems like a cool character. And the first one, he's just this boring, bland dude that it's not that he doesn't have emotion, but it's like his emotion doesn't fit in. Like when Joseph is, it's a bit of spoilers, I guess, but when Joseph is struggling with turning and not turning, and he says that I actually want to turn, there are parts of me that want to turn into that zombie or whatever you want to call it. Sebastian's just like, we'll get out of this. Just something real stupid. I'm like, show some fucking emotion. He's your partner, for fuck's sake.
That's the thing. Anyway. Yeah. In this one, though, he's chasing down his daughter. Something with Bethesda and the family thing. Didn't we talk about this? Like, there's just something with their obsession with like bringing family into it to hammer home the emotion.
The easy emotion.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess when
But
you really
it's
look
cliche.
at
It's absolutely.
yeah, I was gonna say when you look at the bigger
Yeah.
picture, it's like, can you do something new? But like when you take it down to the solo experience, it's like I don't even think of it that way.
Yeah.
I want a dude, where's my car kind of game where you're just looking for like your car was stolen. That's it. There's no emotion at all. You're just like, man, fuck, gotta find my car. Because they do.
Yeah.
That's a typical easy thing. Like find the missing child, which is in every fucking game ever. It's just finding my missing wife, Alan Wake, a game I love, but it's got the same thing.
Literally Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. It's the same premise.
Yeah.
Find your missing sibling or whatever.
At least Wolfenstein isn't about hunting down siblings.
Hunting
Oh my
down
God.
Nazis. Boy, they're in trouble. Jeez.
No, they're not in trouble.
I don't think they're in trouble, but they're getting attacked left and right.
They're getting attacked, but it's brilliant marketing.
Yeah, I was gonna
It's
say
marketing
they're
101.
utilizing modern culture to the full
Well, did you
extent.
see
I was
Peter
like,
Hines, his
I saw-
post this morning?
I thought for the longest time, I'm like, why, like, haven't they done this? I'm surprised how they haven't done this, and then they did it, and I was like, I had a feeling, but they actually did it now.
What was it? It was like keep America Nazi free or something.
Yeah.
Is that how it started?
Make America Nazi free or something. They had a hashtag and they had like the Nazis walking down the street, and people just instantly said, "Well, don't get political." And then everyone else is like, "It's fucking Wolfenstein. It's
20
about
years
killing
ago.
Nazis."
Yeah, it's literally about that.
Yeah. Hey, man. Whatever floats their boat, really. That's how they want to fucking market their game, then go for it.
Yep.
Well, we'll see how it goes for them, see the sales afterwards. That'll wrap up all the topics, though, that we had written down for today. A little bit of a shorter episode at this rate.
Yeah. Didn't you have questions,
yeah, I was gonna
Karak?
say, Karak, you got a couple
Oh
of
yeah,
questions.
I did. I had some patrons that asked questions, and they know that we're on both. So give me 1 second. They know that we're on both podcasts.
No worries. Pulling up some other articles because I swear I had something else. The only other thing that I had is Fallout 4 VR's being packaged with the HTC Vive, and I had no interest in it.
Yeah, that doesn't.
How
me.
expensive is the Vive for you in the States? Is 600?
Yeah, it dropped 200 or 300, so it would be
And, like,
$599, I think.
Considering like your guys' cost of living and average salary and all that, is that considered expensive still?
Oh shit, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I
Because
have
for
one
us, it's
and
1,000.
enjoy it. And, I have one and enjoy it. And in my review, I say no, it's definitely not worth getting. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Johnny says, in my experience, most Telltale games merely present an illusion of choice, and the outcome is largely unaffected by your decisions. Firstly, do you agree? Secondly, since the plot has to be consistent from episode to episode, how would you go about giving more weight to player choices throughout the title? The reason why I think that that's actually a good question is because Batman in particular has done a really good job with making you feel like changes are far larger. But first of all, I guess, is do we agree that most of it's illusionary? And I would say for almost all games, a lot of it's illusion, right?
A lot of it is illusionary because imagine if you had one decision that completely changed the course of a game's story, you'd have to have literally 10 stories every time a different story every time you have a new decision to be made.
Multi-dimensional theory.
Imagine those tree branches. Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, that new story would create a new story would create a new story. I can see, I'm not a heavy believer in like illusion of choice in so many games, just because I guess it depends on your perception and what you value. Like for me, I guess the best example of a game I'm playing with choice is probably Divinity 2. That's been one I've been rolling through, and that does have true choice and consequence. But it's also about, I guess, less choice and consequence and more so being like the chaotic element in the world and just how you choose to solve your problems. It doesn't have an overall impact on the main story. Where, you know, if I want to free this person who's stuck in the gallows, I can kill everyone. I can pay the person off. I can use an intimidation check. I can try to stealth free them. Like, that's the type of stuff I value when it comes to my choice, not just gameplay freedom, but how I like all these options I have, and my mind is the limit on how I can tackle it. But when it comes to Telltale games, I don't know if I'd be the best critic just because I haven't played one since episode 1 of Batman. And before that, it's been since probably The Wolf Among Us, which I love that game. I love it. And that one had good choice and consequence, if I remember correctly. They did account for a lot of the major choices towards the end. I think one of the best ways to add to that is through character recognition. So we'll just use a basic example of you kill someone, that person towards the end brings it up. You know, it doesn't have to drastically alter the story. I think most players just look for recognition in their choices, like the game knows you did this and here's what someone thinks about it. And yes, that is a bit of a contradiction to what I said earlier, because in a way that is an illusion, but at least the game is showing you, like, we know you made this choice. Here's how
it's reacting to you.
Here's what people think. Yeah, if it's reactive, I think players will be more happy. But when it just says they'll remember that and they don't, then it's like, what the fuck was the point of that choice? It's just a cool moment.
I think Telltale's Guardians of the Galaxy, it does an okay job with not just saying, you know, Drax will remember that, but it actually, like, you can hear the emotion in a character's voice when you're going against them or you support them. And there's a lot of those interactions, especially with Gamora versus Rocket. Like, if you support Gamora in what she wants to do, she'll support you in other things, and Rocket will just act like a dick towards you. So I'm not saying like that game is great or anything, because I think it's a pretty average game, but at least it has that. And then obviously you can replay it and see what other people chose at the end of each chapter, which is pretty cool.
I think for me also, we need to back off a little bit on the illusion of choice when you're playing fucking Batman, because Batman doesn't kill people. So I'll get people going, I can't kill this guy, and I'll be like, motherfucker, it's not called RPG, it's called Batman. So you have to, there are some rules that are set in stone, and you can't say, I want to play Batman in this game, and then you turn it on, you're like, why can't I kill anybody? Well, then you didn't want to play Batman. So knock it off. Like, that makes no sense. I do not agree with Maddie in thinking that being able to kill somebody and hearing about it is in any way illusionary. I think that's completely awesome. Because I think illusionary is when you kill somebody and nothing happens, because you made an effect, but there's no result. But even a narrative result, to me, is more than good enough. So I would say, maybe I'm easier, but I would say, and we talked about this when you beat a game and it throws you back in the open world, how pissy I get when a guy pretends like I didn't just save the world. Because he's got a question. He's like, would you go save my rabbits? Right. And I'm like, motherfucker, I'm in my cathedral armor.
I'm your god.
Yeah. So I think that that's not illusionary. I think that's one way they can do it, and I think they don't do it enough. I think that narrative is not used enough. Vocals are not used enough. For example, I'm still stunned by this. I cannot believe this, but the person told me they did it. But Austin Wintory talks about in Syndicate, in the music, where you are is reflected in the music, and it's sung, and it's in French, so you don't know this. But like, if you're at a cathedral, she sang different lyrics for where you are, and I was like, wait, what that happened? He's like, yeah, but we hid it, and I was all, that to me, why'd you hide it? Oh, dude, I was like, Austin, are you? Because he's like, hey, you covered the music the best of anybody, blah blah blah. But let me tell you a secret. And I'm like, no, there's no fucking way. That.
Why would that be a secret? That's silly.
So, but because it's Austin, who's a little out there, he likes to goof around like that. He likes to surprise and And so, to me, vocals are great. I think vocals are the way you do it. I think a concrete condemnation, a concrete acknowledgement of what you did, if done by a poignant character or even a couple NPCs, is more than good enough for many Telltale games. Once you get into the Witchers, and once you get into the more life and death things are, then I think it requires more. But I would love for somebody to just say, you're such a dick to Gordon in Batman, by the way, because you choose different ways to play it. Instead, it's just Gordon who says it, right?
Yeah.
And I would love it if multiple people reacted back. I think it is handled better. I think Lone's right, because I'm playing those. I play all of them for review, and I definitely think that Guardians, despite me disliking it a lot right now, I think that it still shows a better reaction, for sure.
Well, and I think you made a good point about it matters about what the type of game is. So when it's a Telltale game, maybe it, like, because literally all the game is point and click, and you talk to people. So when people talk to you in a different way, it actually means something. Right? Exactly. Yeah. But when it comes to an open world game and game with more freedom, you expect your choices to have a little bit more impact. Like, if I ransack a town in Fallout, I don't want to wait a day, come back, and they're all fucking hunky dory with me. And that's not real choice. You know what I mean? Like that. In that instance, I think that's an illusion. I mean, at that point in time, they could have been shooting at my head and telling me I'm a dick. But if I come back later and they're okay with me, then that meant my choice didn't mean anything. And I think a lot of people had problems with Fallout 4, for instance. When you go back and play the game for a second time, the game plays out in the exact same way, maybe like a Telltale game with a few subtle differences with dialogue here and there, but there are no major differences no matter what decision that you make. And because Fallout is that kind of game, people have an issue with that, because in that instance, your choice doesn't matter, because the game is meant to be about, you know, killing, about this big, open, thriving open world where people are meant to be lifelike and real. And if they're not reacting like a real person would, then it's an illusion.
And you know what else bothers me? I was actually talking to a developer in our roundtable about one of the things I am surprised about. I've told you guys I hate audio logs because, you know, I'm dying, but I'm going to record myself. But one of the things I had said was, do you know what would be awesome? Is especially if you're attacking bad guys in their base or something. It would be cooler. It would be so cool to pick up an audio log and have somebody talking about you and be all, we've got reports, this guy's been killing, you know, Splinter Cell did it once or twice, but that kind of acknowledgement on the side.
Fallout 3 did it.
Fallout did it? I didn't remember that.
Yeah, it was like, the Vault Wanderer has saved Megaton. Like, yeah, you're damn right I did.
I love that kind of stuff. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That did. I would love to see, because I hate audio logs, we were talking about that in particular, like where you pick them up and you're like, what the fuck's this disc doing out here? So, yeah, I would love to see that kind of stuff. I like the narrative. As long as people acknowledge it, you know, you don't have to always show some huge, massive thing, but a little bit of an acknowledgement would go so far in selling it. Like, sell it to me. Don't let me kite bad decisions like I kite a bad guy in a video game. Because how many times have you walked into a town, stole stuff, ran out, waited, come back into the town, they're all, you want to buy something?
You're like, up, man?
I'm wearing your hat.
Doing good?
You know? Yeah, my hat says
I killed
NPC
your dog, for fuck's sake.
Exactly. So, yeah. That was a good question, man. Did you need another one, Maddie? You want another one?
Yeah, we got time for one more.
Okay, great. Let me open it back up. Sorry, I shut it down.
No, you're all good.
Yeah, they... thank you. I'll have to thank that guy. Let's see. I didn't say who asked the question. I apologize. Okay. I'm not going to ask that.
You're going to tell us what that question was after the podcast, because now I'm genuinely curious.
I will. Oh, hey, here we go. None of your business asks. That's his username. Excellent username. Is there a franchise that you used to love, but you're now tired of or no longer like based on bad decisions by creators? When I was a kid, I loved Star Wars, but now I find it hard to be excited by Battlefront 2 and the upcoming movie. Wow. That is a really fucking good question.
Shit.
Wow, I'm sure I could think of a bunch. Oh, man.
For me, I would certainly say games-wise, I think that, strangely enough, like Gears of War, 4, I'm like, okay, we're done.
Really?
I don't want to.
I liked 4 a lot.
I liked it too, but I'm just saying that, and it wasn't even a bad decision. It was just, it's like, I don't even know if Long in the Tooth. I liked a lot of it. I really liked 4, but it was one of those things where I'm like, if you said they were doing 5 tomorrow, I wouldn't. There would be no motion from me at all. And then for bad decisions, almost all sports games. I used to love sports games, man. I used to be such a fan. And
are you telling me FIFA 18 hasn't innovated on FIFA 17? Come on, Karak.
We've got it together. Animation system, fuck off. So yeah.
I was having a discussion with someone about this other day. Like, it's literally hard to innovate with sports games like FIFA to make it different. And then this guy was like, well, here's a Reddit post where we talked about features that we've wanted for years and they haven't added to it. And then I read through it. It was like, better, like alternate team colors and shit like that. I'm like, yeah, but that's still not innovative. I mean, like, even if they made these things, it would still be the same.
Said when it comes to sports games, if you want to innovate, just make wacky gameplay modes that have nothing to do with like the actual sport. Like NHL 18 kind of did that. I mean, that game sucks. I'm gonna be honest. I love hockey so much. I play it. I love playing NHL, but this one it's so lacking because it is the same exact game except it added this NHL 3s mode, and in the 3s mode, it's pretty cool because it's like heavy hits. Like it's like the rink is smaller. You're just trying to do cool moves and stuff. So it is a lot more arcadey, and I think that's a step in the right direction at the very least.
Football
for more
could
games.
do that.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I'm
American
saying.
football.
Make a street football mode. Turn it into I remember the days of NHL Hits and NFL Blitz.
FIFA Street,
MLB Slugfest, FIFA Street, dude. Like,
and it's
combine the two.
What's the smaller? There's a real football division for smaller schools. Is it 5-man? 7-man? Is it 7-man or 5-man football for American football?
No,
smaller schools don't have the full 11. Yeah, and so because our school, right next to our school, there was a smaller town, and they couldn't play us because they didn't even, their entire teams were set up different. So something like that, sport, like you said, street, that would be cool. I think that unfortunately with sports, it is really hard. Yeah,
it's diminishing returns.
Very much so.
But in terms of question, like the question I was asked, one thing that I can think of, and there were other reasons behind it, but I stopped playing Assassin's Creed when Brotherhood had a multiplayer mode, because that was a time where I just wanted to get all the achievements in a game, and I felt like if I played that, I'd have to play the multiplayer, and I just didn't think multiplayer belonged in an Assassin's Creed game.
And I gotta say, buddy, it was so good, because I agree with you. I thought this would be terrible, and one of my friends talked me into a late night game session, and disguising yourself and watching somebody walk by and fucking shivving them is one of the most brutally fun.
But I tried it, and I was like,
just didn't like it, huh?
I just didn't like it, and it was ignorance on my behalf, but I was like, if they didn't do this, they could have focused on something else. But I think that was actually true. Like, if you had people working on that multiplayer mode, they could have actively been doing something else. So I just didn't play the game. And that's a decision that to this day, I would never agree with, which is why I didn't care that with Bioshock Remastered that they dropped Bioshock 2 multiplayer, because as fun as it was for me, it just didn't belong in the game.
I have two answers. One is less of the creator and more so the decision on what they do with the IP. That's Ninja Gaiden. I loved 1 and 2, and then 3 sucked and they just gave up. And the series has been dormant since, and I don't know why, because and I think they did the Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z or whatever the hell it was called, that zombie one. It's like, why? Just, you had a working formula. Why go away from that, and why just abandon the series? I think it could do really well in today's gaming culture. The other one is Halo. I haven't been interested in Halo since like middle life of 4. I thought what they did with 5 was a joke. Wars 2 was okay. It was better than 5. I still say that to this day, but it's still like not the ideal direction, because I mean, Halo 1 through 3, those are iconic to me growing up. Yeah. Those were some of the best games, and I look at those, and then I look at this new generation of Halo, and I have no problems with the changes like ADS, sprinting, whatever. It's just that they're trying to move it forward, but they're not doing what Bungie managed to do with every entry in Halo, which is like, here's some more kick-ass maps, here's another amazing story, here's some new mechanics. Like, I guess it was during a time too where, like, I remember in Halo 1, man, I want to get in that Wraith, and you couldn't. And then Halo 2, you could get in the Wraith, and it's such a simple thing that nowadays in games you'd expect, but back then every new entry allowed more stuff in the Halo universe that you'd want to
dual wield.
Yeah,
all of a sudden,
exactly. It's like, that's something you kind of expect. Now, back then, it's, it was a cool new feature. So Halo's another one. Those are two franchises.
Halo.
That was a great question.
That was a great question. That was a better answer than I gave, because I would say Halo. While I like them, they come up and I'll play them and I'll enjoy them, but something is missing. And I would say that 3 is the last one. I liked 4 and I liked 5 for various different reasons, but liked a lot even. But whatever happened, 3 is
like the old ones.
Exactly. Something about 1 and 3 to me especially just fucking nailed it. And in fact, we just recently played through 3. I was just like, hey, let's all just sit back down and play through 3. I think a lot of it has to do with their story too. I think that you can't ignore story in a Halo game, and you can't, and the religious versus the expansionist, the Earthlings versus the Covenant worked. Yeah. And once you and little things like the grunts calling you a demon because you were known in their religion as like being this ultimate killer. Absolutely. And so the grunts would run away and they'd be like, the demon's coming. I was like, yes, I am, bitches. Yeah. You'd be like, And then you got into 4 and 5, and it's like the ultimate evil, and you're all okay.
Ultimate
it's
evil.
always the ultimate evil. Like I get that
mysterious group.
Yeah, and I think it was much better when it was black and white, and it was Covenant. I also was not a fan of adding the Covenant character in 2, where you could play him. I did not enjoy that at all.
I got another game, Street Fighter V, dropping the arcade mode.
Oh,
that,
yeah.
like, just looking at that from the third perspective, and they're just adding it, is it next year or something?
Yeah.
I don't believe that they have it still. And
Weird.
That was to me, because that's literally what I grew up playing Street Fighter as. Like, even on the Switch, I was playing Street Fighter 2 Arcade Edition. I just play arcade. I don't play against anyone else. I like going through every character and finishing the story. Yeah. But you couldn't do that in Street Fighter 5. That was bizarre to me. Yeah. Absolutely bizarre.
That's a very good example of basically a cornerstone being removed for no reason.
Literally,
they didn't make up any ground with that, right? Like, they didn't add anything new to.
No, that was the thing, and not to be rude, but their story wasn't that in depth. It was some text. It was like, so like people were really upset. Yeah, people were just like, "Are you really? You didn't have time to? Virtual Fighter did it, and you can't do it? Like, what the fuck?" It just, it was weird. That was a really good example. I didn't even think about that. Those are both better examples than mine. I especially Street Fighter, because like, that is just a weird removal.
That was a weird one.
I wonder why. God, be interesting to find out.
I don't know. Like, maybe they just. I can't explain. I don't think there probably is an explanation, but it's just not good. It's one of those.
Yeah, right. Yeah. When you're like, okay, so and they have one, and you're all, that's a shit explanation, dude. Yeah. I'd like to do an interview and just stone cold and be all, yeah, that's stupid. That's dumb as fuck. Yeah, that's just. I mean, people weren't playing it. Stupid. Still stupid. Lone played it. One person played it. It's what matters.
Yeah.
Call it lone mode.
That makes sense.
You want another one? Are we good to go?
Nah, we're good to go at this point.
Excellent.
All right. Well, what is a good hashtag for this week, ladies and gentlemen? What's a good hashtag?
You thought of a good one last week, Matty. Now that pressure's on.
Yeah, Ham Halloween or whatever.
Can you get Shadow of Microtransactions, or is it too long? People just get mad about it. It's just a joke.
Can you put a money symbol in a hashtag?
I don't know. I think you can do anything in a hashtag. I think special characters.
Pretend you're about to tweet it. See if you like can
hashtag dollars. No, it cancels it.
Fuck.
Oh, does it?
I was gonna say shadow, just like a money symbol.
Hashtag. I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
Shadow of.
Trying to think of one.
Yeah.
DLC end game. Microtransactions in
Shadow of cash. I mean, we could really just simplify it. We can streamline
Shadow of Money Door.
Yeah,
Shadow of Money Door.
Yeah, Money Door. That's a good one. All right, we're gonna spell
Money Door. Just do Money Door.
Yeah, actually, that's
people
better.
Would pick up on it.
Yeah, Money Door. There we go. So if you've gotten to this point in the podcast, let us know on Twitter at Jeremy Hunter, at GT7Status, and at LoneVaultWanderer with the hashtag Money Door. That's a really good one. I like that a lot.
Money Door. That's terrible, man.
I can't wait to see people misspell it. It's gonna be great.
True. We're gonna spell it Money Door.
D-O-R.
Yeah, D-O-R. MONEYDOR. So don't intentionally misspell it or anything, guys. Now they're gonna do it.
Money Dory.
Or we're gonna see Money Door, but like 2 O's.
Oh, dude, we will.
Or whatever.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, gentlemen. Thank you for joining the show this week. It was a blast. And we'll catch you guys next week. Peace out.
Peace out.